Welcome to the Configure Price Quote podcast. My name is Frank Sohn and I'm the founder of CPQ Consulting. This podcast is 100% focused on Configure Price Quote, also known as CPQ, and will provide you useful insights into this topic. My guest today is Kristian Frøstrup Madsen. Kristian is the head of CPQ and software development at the Center for Product Customization, which describes itself as modularity, complexity management, product configuration, and PLM competence group. That's quite a mouthful. The company is headquartered in Copenhagen, Denmark, and Kristian has been with the firm in different roles since 2012. Welcome to the CPQ podcast, Kristian.
Thank you.
Kristian, let's start by telling me a little bit more about yourself and what you did before you joined CPC in 2012.
Yeah, so I joined CPC directly from university. I studied a direction called Design and Innovation at the Technical University of Denmark, DTU. And it's a direction focusing on mechanical and management engineering.
Hey, that's very cool. But now let me ask one question. So you now have been with the company for 13 years. That's very unusual. I see sometimes people change companies in 1 or 2 years. What makes the company so great that you stayed that long?
I think there are several factors in that question, and one of them is definitely that CPC is a very family-oriented company. So we have a very great relationship with all the employees in the company, and we actually have a lot of people that have chosen to stay more than 10 years in the company. And lately we have a couple of what we call boomerangs, so people that left CPC for a couple of years and actually have decided to rejoin. So I think that's also one of the really speaks to the spirit and the atmosphere of working in CPC. Also for me personally, I think one of the things that have kept me going is, as you said, that I had various different positions in CPC. So when I came from university, I focused mainly on modularization, and I spent the first couple of years working with product management and modularization. Then later on in my career, I spent some time on the area of PLM. So I spent a couple of years implementing PLM solutions, and now for the last 5 or 6 years, I have been focusing mainly on CPQ implementation. So for me, it's been the same company and the same great people to be around, but it's been many different clients in many different countries and also many different professional experiences. So I think that's what has kept me going for this long.
Excellent. I think it's always a good sign if people want to stay that long in a company, there is something that keeps them, right? So I think that's interesting. So, but you said for the last 5-6 years, you focused on CPQ. What are the big trends that you see from your points of view in CPQ over these last 5-6 years?
I think the companies that we work with, a lot of them, they are actually really still focusing on the basics. They are focusing on getting configure, price, and quote into a digital solution. So many of the manufacturing industries, they still want to get rid of spreadsheets. They want to get rid of custom applications that someone started in the company and it made sense at the time, but with complexity growing, it becomes more and more unmanageable. So I would say a lot of the companies that we support, they are still on a journey to really get CPQ operational. But what we have also seen in the last couple of years is really the need to couple CPQ closer with the PLM implementation. So to get the right structures in place in the PLM, to build technical configuration logic, and then to extend the logic with more commercial logic in CPQ. And also going the other way. So when you sell from CPQ, being able to put the outcome, put the order into PLM or ERP.
Okay, so then let me ask a completely different question, right? So if you were not in the tech industry where you are right now, right? So, and you could change careers, where would you like to go? What else is interesting for you?
Oh, it's a difficult question. I think for me, the reason I ended up in engineering is probably that I was good at math in school, and then at some point I had to pick a direction. So I'm very pleased with that decision. I have a brother and I have a sister who's both teachers, and I think it's a really nice profession as well, being able to educate young people. So that could have been a potential career, I guess. Now, luckily, I get a chance to work with the less senior consultants at CPC. So I guess that's the closest I get to the teaching job with this profession.
Interesting. Thank you very much for sharing that. Now, before we talk more about CPC, tell me, what do you do when you don't work?
I have 2 kids. One is 5 and one is 7. So I think they occupy probably the majority of my time when I'm not working. I really enjoy that, spending time with the family. We live on Zealand, a little bit north of Copenhagen, but we have a house on the west coast of Denmark. It's in the area that's called Cold Hawaii, so it's the surfing capital of Denmark. So when I'm not working near the office, I enjoy spending time on the west coast and taking my sons out for some surfing.
Oh, wow, that's very cool. So I never heard about that term, honestly. So I'm from Germany originally, right? So, but never heard about cold Hawaii. That's a cool one. I have to look that one up. And that was also a first, by the way, right? So I think I had people who said they were surfing, but not in cold Hawaii. Very cool. Thanks for sharing that.
You need to ask your German friends, because it's full of German people. There's so many German RVs.
Absolutely, we'll do that. So now let's talk a little bit more about CPC. Tell me a little bit more about what services CPC offers.
Yeah, so we offer services in 3 main areas. Modular architectures, supporting companies to standardize and modularize their products in the design phase and optimize the offering towards the market. Then we have a service that we call Modular PLM, which is really focused on getting this modular thinking into the PLM environment. And then we have CPQ, or we sometimes also refer to it as Modular CPQ, taking the same mindset, building modular products and utilizing these in the CPQ setup.
And let's dig a little bit deeper into this. So let's first start with the industries that you focus on. Are there any specific industries that you focus on?
Typically, it's the more complex manufacturing industries we're in, but it's anything from pumps, so smaller products, but typically with a high number of variants. We have been a lot in heavy machinery industry, typically CTO products with a lot of variety. But then also in ETO businesses, plant manufacturers, factories, offshore equipment, renewable industries, oil and gas. So it's really a wide range of industry that we are supporting. But I would say a little bit more focus on manufacturing and business to business, and less focus on products that go to end consumers.
Got it. And what company size do you typically work with?
It varies a little bit, but typically we focus on customers that have a minimum revenue around 50 million euros.
Okay. And the geography that you focus on, you're obviously based in Europe, right? So is that where you focus most of your activities, or you're going beyond Europe?
Historically, we have been, of course, a lot in Scandinavia. In the past, it was very much centered around Denmark and Sweden. Nowadays, I think it's most of Scandinavia. We have a wide range of customers as well in Finland and in Norway. But now also, I would say rest of Europe, and especially North America, with the recent acquisition by PDSVision.
And I want to ask about this acquisition in a minute, but one question before that, you mentioned also that you have a CPQ practice. Not sure if that's the right term for it, right? So, but who do you work with there on the CPQ side?
Yeah, so we are system agnostic as a company, so we are not a reseller of any one system. So our focus is to implement CPQ, and we have partnerships with Tacton. We have a partnership with Configit, and we have a partnership with Epicor, more formal partnerships. Then we have also worked in supporting companies that utilize cameras and companies that utilize Microsoft Dynamics and other smaller CPQ solutions. But those are the 3 main ones where we have partnerships.
Okay, excellent. But now you already mentioned it, right? So the acquisition of CPC by PDSVision. Tell me a little bit more about it. When did it happen? What's the impact that you see from that acquisition right now?
Yes, the acquisition happened in beginning of the year, and for me, I think it's a great synergy. I have been personally collaborating with PDSVision for a couple of years now on various projects, nothing to do with acquisition, but just meeting the guys on different accounts where it has been a great synergy. So they are more focused on the PLM system as such, where implementation and setup of the system, where I think our competence in structuring the product data and making it ready for PLM implementation, restructuring of legacy products to become modular, has just worked out very well. So from my point of view, the acquisition is new, and being part of PDSVision Group is great. But I've collaborated with many of the people in PDSVision for years now. So in that sense, it also feels normal already.
That's very good. So, but just for our listeners, so to get an idea about the size, how many people did CPC have before the acquisition?
So CPC is, we were around 60 colleagues at the time of the acquisition, and PDSVision are around 600 globally.
Okay. And the company is also based in Europe, right? So,
yeah, they are founded in Sweden, but they have made acquisitions in various countries. So they are spread out in the majority, both in the US and in APAC as well.
got it. And all the previous CPC employees are still there, I guess, right? So after the acquisition right now.
Yes.
So you're still working with the same CPQ partners after the acquisition that you mentioned before, correct?
Yes, we still partner with Tacton and Configit and Epicor.
And how do you work with these different vendors in your projects? Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we work. I think it can take different forms. So we have projects where we are implementing the solution on behalf of the partner, and we are doing the bulk of the work, and we typically use the partner for or the vendor for more license-related discussions, and then we manage the entire implementation. And then we have other projects where we work more closely together with the vendor, and we actually co-deliver the project. So they will take certain responsibilities on the clients, and we will take certain responsibilities on the clients. And I think both can work really great. We are definitely open to implement end to end, but we also learn a lot from working directly with the vendor. So I'm really happy that we have the chance to both implement on our own, but we also have the chance to collaborate on active projects.
Okay, so then let me ask you something else. I mean, this question I had to write down because it's a mouthful, but let me tell you what I was looking for. So CPC positions itself as an independent partner with operational experience within modularity, complexity management, configuration, modular architectures, PLM, and product data management. So that's quite a mouthful. That's why I have to write it down. But the question is really, can you explain what you mean by that and what advantages this offers for your customers?
Yeah, so it's basically what it means for us is that everyone in CPC has a product background. So almost all consultants, they are educated within mechanical or management engineering, meaning that they really understand and they know the products. So in that sense, I think that separates us from other IT consultants that typically have a background within IT. So what we pride ourselves on is to really understand the products and to have this background within modularity. So we know not only how the IT system works, but we know how the products work, we know how they are designed, and we know how products should be structured to become modular, both from a design perspective, how do you actually physically design modular products to have standardized interfaces so they can be combined and flexible in many different ways, but also how do you structure digital structures that are modular and fit well within IT system and allows all of this product complexity to be managed in an efficient manner. So I think this is for us what maybe separates some of our consultants to other IT consultants, that we are really coming from a product background, and we have learned IT implementation on top of a product foundation, where I think many IT consultants, they come from an IT background and then learn to various degree about the products that they implement in the IT system.
Hello everyone. If you have any questions concerning CPQ, consider contacting us at info@novocpq.com, because we help customers with all kinds of questions related to CPQ. So we're involved in customer projects and we provide industry analyst services. So let me give you 2 examples on what helps a lot of customers regularly and see if that would be a help to you. The number 1 is we help customers find the right CPQ solution for them. We do that for customers of all sizes in all industries. I've been working in the industry since '96, and we help you to find the right solution. We do that with one-on-one meetings and projects, but we also do that through written reports. So we have the CPQ analyst report is our latest report. We currently have 6 and we'll soon have 7 available. And then throughout the year, we're striving to have around 20, hopefully more by the end of the year, and there will be even more reports. And we also help customers to stay up to date with what's happening in the CPQ world. If you already have a solution and you want to see what's new, we have a subscription that offers a number of hours and a monthly newsletter that shows what's happening in the CPQ space. It's our CPQ Circle subscription. If you have any questions about this, send us an email at info@novocpq.com. Give me a practical example to see how that changes your approach. What does it mean for me as a customer? You're going to be on it longer, shorter? You approach it differently? You have a different methodology? Tell me a little bit more about that, please.
Yeah, so I think we probably spend a little bit more time looking at the products before we start implementing in the system. And then what we see typically, at least with clients that have been on it themselves for a while before we join, is that typically they start from a corner and they start developing something, and then they meet an issue, and then they develop in another direction and they meet an issue, and then they keep developing, and at some point, eventually, of course, they will be able to go live. The way we typically approach it is that we take a very top-down approach. We define the major modules, both of the products and of the IT systems. We then define the interfaces between the modules, and then we define the lower structures within the main module. So we try to build both products, but also IT from a top-down modularity perspective, always starting from the architecture and then working our way down towards the detail. The thesis here is to spend a little bit more time up front setting the right structures, really understanding the architecture, but then saving time down the line in implementation, and also making maintenance much easier, having less complexity, less modules, less variants, less rules to maintain. Later on, will easily bring back the time that you spend on setting the right architecture from the beginning.
That's very interesting. And also one thing I want to ask you as well, what are some of the key factors that your customers should consider when they transition from a traditional product configuration to a modular platform-based approach?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we typically see configurators in legacy system where every product variant has its own configurator. So already when you start the configuration journey, you pick a product and then you start configuring. From a modularity perspective, we believe we should bring configurators to either platforms or product families. So not running configuration product by product, but running configuration product family by product family. Another very important aspect is to look at the depth of where configuration happens. So in many cases, configuration is a direct link between the sales option that the customer purchased, and then sometimes all the way down to the part numbers that needs to be manufactured. So instead of configuring nuts and bolts, we want to bring the aggregation up to a level of modules and variants, and then assign the configuration logic around the modules and the variants.
And what, I mean, it's one thing to say it, but what methodology or what strategy do you follow to transition really then to product structure that is more flexible, right? So what does a customer need to do, and what should they expect from you time-wise, right? So when you start to do this analysis, is that something that's done in 2 weeks, 2 months?
Yeah, we of course have a process for doing it. I don't think there is not a magic bullet that can restructure the products, not yet at least. So it is a matter of experience and having tried to do this kind of restructuring exercise many times before. So what we typically do is to support the client. Maybe doing either a POC or doing a pre-study or doing a pilot project where we build at least the first products together, and we learn the client how to structure the products so they can also embark on this journey themselves, taking the next products that needs to be modularized.
And that brings up the question, how long is an average project for you anyway?
It depends a little bit. We have everything from very large projects running for more than a year, but I would say typically when we start and we build the first pilot, it's a matter of month. 1 to 3 months should be possible to make something that is really functional, not just a nice sales demonstration, but building an actual configurator based on a new structure that will greatly simplify the complexity of the product.
And I see in general that customers request shorter implementation times. And I was wondering, do you see the same from the customers that you work with?
Yeah, definitely. We see it, but I think it's very aligned with the philosophy that we would like to take. We very much believe in not trying to make a big bang for the entire company, but to find the product that will provide value on the market, and then do a first pilot, but not a pilot for showcasing. Do a first pilot for aiming for a fast go live with something meaningful for the client. And I think that is doable. The question is, of course, if we can also limit the requirements on the IT side and the integration side to make it really doable to go live.
And in a lot of these efforts, right, especially to reduce implementation times, companies look at AI tools. Are you doing the same thing? Are you trying to use AI to help you do your job better, faster? I don't know.
We, of course, use AI to some extent. I think as a consultancy business, you have to be a little bit careful, of course, about how you use AI so you don't expose any data to AI where it's not supposed to be. But we also know that I think all the vendors are looking into possibilities of integrating AIs. I've seen some pretty cool demos of loading spec sheets and other material into an AI that can then generate configuration models. At the moment, I believe it's probably more realistic that it will give you the first pass on a model, and then instead of typing everything by hand, you can then adjust what comes out of the AI. I don't see it at the moment that it fully creates a configuration model that you can go live. I think there's a couple of steps until we are at that stage, but it's definitely very interesting to see what's ongoing.
But at this point in time, how much do you think AI could even help with the desire to shorten the implementation cycle from your point of view?
I mean, once the first real productized version comes out, there's no doubt that if you can bring data to an AI and it can help to structure the main questions and answers that might be needed in the configurator, and it can help build some of the simple rules, you can shorten a lot of the initial work to get all the data in place. So I think it can be a great help. To what extent? Because it's typically also from implementation that we do today, it's the last 20% that takes the time, and to what extent AI can shorten those 20% where things needs to be absolutely right, that I think is still to be seen.
Yeah. Would fully agree. Interesting. How would you see customer interest right now anyway? So when you look at your pipeline for the remainder of this year, where do you see CPQ interest?
Yeah, there's no doubt that of course AI is of an interest. What can we do with it? Not only building up configuration models that we talked about before for shortening the implementation time, but also what can it bring in terms of analytics? Could it potentially help in the guided selling journey after you have built the configurator? That's of course something that is interesting.
And if you could give one piece of advice to a customer that's looking to improve their CPQ and modularization strategy, what would it be?
It would be to focus on the product data, or at least don't forget the product data in the implementation. We have seen various projects where the focus has been on the IT capabilities, getting a great system in place. But to our experience, even if you have the most state-of-the-art CPQ system, if you don't have the right product data and you don't have the right input, it's very hard to get really the value of the tool.
And then let me ask one follow-up question to that. So when you have to have this effort for the product, how much time do you think you need? And when then you should properly start that product project before you start your configuration project, right? So tell me a little bit more about how you think an ideal process would be for that.
You can say in the fully ideal world, you would of course start developing the actual modular product. So you would start from a blank piece of paper and build your products in the nice modules, and then you would digitalize it after building it. In the real world, it's typically not possible to start redesigning the products when you want to aim for a CPQ implementation. So where we typically start is by restructuring legacy products. In our belief, it is actually possible to take legacy bill of materials and legacy rules and structure it in a modular manner. Even if the product is not fully modularized below, you can actually create modular structures out of legacy products. And I think that sets the basis for a faster CPQ implementation. Spending some time on getting right structures greatly increases the time that you can implement the products in CPQ. And then as a second step for the next generation and the next generation, you have a chance to then focus on actually improving the modularity and the design of the products, which can then further increase the flexibility and variety to the market.
And from your point of view, is that customers can fully rely on you to do that, or should they also train their own people in what you're introducing then with the modularity and complexity management? Do they need to train them, and if so, how long does it take?
We will always have the client engaged in the project. We don't believe in the kind of projects where the client will just send all the data to us and then we go in our office for 3 months and then come out with an outcome to the client. We will always work not for the client, but with the client, typically spending time either in virtual workshops or spending time face-to-face to build up the products together. And there are 2 reasons. And this one reason is that it will be a much better outcome if we collaborate on building the configurators. And the other piece is that we want to enable the companies to go on with this journey even after we end the project. There is no configurator which is finished after the first implementation. There will be new market requirements, there will be new ideas to bring in. So it's important that the configurator can also have a life after we end the project.
But in order to understand your concepts and the way how you approach a product, how long does it take typically for a customer to learn that so that they can do it self-sufficiently afterwards?
Yeah, I think we don't typically aim for a hard stop. So it's not like we work together for 3 months and then we leave the client. It will be a transition phase. So we typically do the first projects together where we drive the main facilitation. So they learn the process and they learn the way of thinking. And then we sort of switch role where the client will then take more responsibility on the facilitation and we will take a more supporting role. And then over time, that role from our side can be reduced. Of course, we would like to maintain a long-term engagement and help the client with any new implementations they might need. So it's a little bit up to the client to what extent that we keep the engagement or where we leave it over. But anything that's a daily maintenance, bringing new products to the market, maintaining configuration logic, I think ideally should be able to be taken on by the client. And then the speed is, of course, also depending on how much time the client invests in the project. So if they have the right resources in place and they are fully engaged from the beginning and ready to learn, it can be quite fast. Sometimes it takes a bit longer if they need to find the right people and they need to get them up to speed.
Very interesting, but unfortunately, we're coming to the end of this episode. Hence, my last question is, what's a good way for interested listeners to contact you or your team if they have any follow-up questions?
You are welcome to find us on our website. It's pfmp.com, or you are, of course, welcome to look me up on LinkedIn. If you have a chance to be in Berlin the 23rd and the 24th of June, we will also be attending the Smart Variant Con, which is a complexity and CPQ conference in Germany.
Excellent. We will have all these links in the show notes. As always, Kristian, thank you very much for making time for the CPQ podcast today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for listening and hope you learned something interesting today. If you like the podcast, please go ahead and rate it on iTunes or share it with your friends and colleagues. In the meantime, you can find us online at www.novocpq.com. So long, everyone.